Utah football is officially back for 2023 spring ball. We're talking about the breakout candidates on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, thank you guys for continuing to support and subscribe to our show. We are just closing in on 1,000 views, so can't thank you guys enough for your support. My name is JG Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department, and on today's show, we're going to be diving into all things relating to spring ball breakout candidates. We'll also close with a small thing on Utah basketball and how they can eventually get to the position where they themselves are competing in the NCAA tournament, because, man, what a fun ride it was, and it was great to see the women's team do such an outstanding job now reaching the Sweet 16. But as I said, we'll do the basketball talk at the end because we're talking breakout candidates first. And in order to help me do all of that, it's friend of the show and UteZone contributor Nathan Roderick. And Nathan, there's a lot of guys that I think have an awesome opportunity. This is what spring ball is about, is the younger guys. It's their time to shine. It's even more so this year because no Cam Rising, no Brand Keithy because of injuries. So we're really going to see an emphasis on a lot of the younger guys. And when you're talking about breakout candidates, these are the guys that I expect Kyle Whittingham to go to the media at the press conference after. And whether it's either of the Joshes, Michelle, whoever it's going to be, go up and ask who stood out at practice today. These are the guys he's going to say. And my first pick is I am going all in on the hype because we're going to be drafting these guys back and forth. We each got 5 names we're going to be taking for those of you listening. So my first name, I'm going for the obvious pick. I know the hype around this guy has been crazy, and I've been bought in for a while. I'm going Nate Johnson. I think he is going to be the guy that at the end of spring ball, Kyle Whittingham doesn't outright say he's quarterback 2. I don't even know if he'll allude to the fact that he might be leading it, but I think by the time it's over, he will be the guy who's broken out. I think the hype, especially after the spring game, is going to be incredible. Talk about the 6'1" quarterback out of Clovis, California. I mean, just electric in limited reps we saw last season. When you talk about the 3 rushing touchdowns, he had the 1 passing touchdown on the nice trick play over to Logan Kendall, to just a lot of fun stuff with him. And I just think he is just the kind of special player. When you see a guy do the kind of things he did, whether it was rushing for those first downs, I already talked about the touchdowns, even caught a pass in the Pac-12 championship game. He's just a guy who makes plays. And I think it's a special attribute to have. And it's why I think when this is said and done, we'll remember 2023 as Nate Johnson's spring ball.
I like it. Bold pick. Probably the favorite there. For my first pick, I'm going to go to the other side of the ball and go with Miles Battle, coming from a transfer from Ole Miss, already enrolled, and looking forward to him coming and seeing how quickly he can learn the defense, especially Morgan Scalley's defense can be a little complicated. And I'm really looking forward to see his wingspan. He's 6'4", 205 pounds. And Utah struggled with depth, the last 2 years in their secondary. And I'm not sure if he's going to start day one, but he'll be right there in the mix. And I'm really hoping, he can learn it quickly because it might take a minute. But hopefully we can hear his name a couple of times from the coaches here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, didn't have the year he wanted at Ole Miss last year, but he's still a guy who's appeared in over 45 games for the Rebels, going back from 2018 to 2022. So a veteran experience has faced off. I mean, you think about the times they've played Alabama. We know some of the talented receivers they put in the NFL draft. Those are guys Battle has had to go to battle against, basically, no pun intended there. But seriously, an incredible player. He recorded 61 tackles, 2 interceptions, a fumble recovery, and 16 pass breakups during his career with the Rebels. And the corner room is very interesting right now because, it feels like JT Broughton and then Zamiah Vaughn, those should be the top 2 guys. But how does the rest shake out? How much do we see Sione Vaki playing in the nickel spot? How much do we see a guy like Fabian Marks, the strides he's made? And Miles Battle, I mean, I consider him the favorite to be kind of that third corner for this team. Maybe he'll even have a chance to pass a guy like JT Broughton. I do think Zamiah Vaughn will end up as cornerback 1, but when you got a guy who's experienced his battle, especially going against some of the more potent receivers in the SEC, I think he's a guy who's got a great chance to make this really interesting. So I think Battle's a great pick there. For my second pick, I'm going to stay on the defensive side of the ball. This is a guy that's been really hyped up for about a couple weeks now, ever since Kyle Whittingham was talking about him a little bit, and that's Chase Kennedy. I think whenever you see a position change like Mickey Sugacharaga had, where he's going over to play tight end now, I think it speaks to the growth and development of someone like Chase Kennedy. And look, I mean, he is just an uber athletic freak athlete at the edge position. And he's a guy that I'm really excited to see what he's going to do, because I think that with the bend and the special athletic traits he has coming off the edge, I think he has a chance to do some really special things. And I think this defensive line staff is really excited to get their hands on him and work with him even more in spring ball, because this is what spring ball is so important with. It's about developing, getting guys more reps, more opportunities, and especially you can coach them more. We know that, especially during the season, so much of the coaching had to be focused on Jonah Ellis, Van Fillinger, even a guy. It just wasn't used on the younger guys who were development, because you're more focused on, though, each week you got to figure out the best way to win games right here, right now. And I think this is the nice thing about a guy like Chase Kennedy. I mean, he's 6'3", 235 out of Texas. I think he's going to really come in and have a strong year. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was one of this team's best pass rushers come the season close. I think he is an incredible player, and I think we're really going to see him stand out on the defensive side of the ball.
Right. No, I love that pick. He was one that he kept getting better each week during practice, and he redshirted last year, obviously. Only saw action against Colorado. But like you said, his body is the perfect for the end. Hopefully he can be like a pass rush specialist with this group moving forward. It's something that, this group really needs to improve on from last year, is getting to the quarterback. And I think Chase has the potential to do so. With my second pick, I'm going to go with the return missionary, Nate Ritchie.
Yep.
Looking forward to see, how his body, reacts from coming home from his mission, and how he, does this spring with some extended practice reps. He was there for that 2020 year, only played a couple games, but in those games, he was one of the best players on the defense. And he's already elected to be on the leadership council for this team. So it shows how much the coaches trust him. And with the departure of Clayton Isbell, this last couple of weeks, who steps up in his spot, it's probably Nate Ritchie, right? And so looking forward to what he brings to this defense, and especially how he progresses during the spring. And ever since Cole Bishop came onto the scene, you've always wondered what a Nate Ritchie and Cole Bishop defensive backfield would look like. And I think we're going to get a good look here in the spring.
I absolutely agree. And I think, look, we're not in the room, but it feels like one of the reasons that Clayton probably left is because of how good Nate looks, is because of how good Sione looked to close last season, where, look, this is Clayton's final year. He wants to play. He probably didn't see a big path to that when Utah should have, once again, I mean, Utah had one of the better safety tandems in the Pac-12 last year. This should absolutely be one of this three-headed monster that Utah could have, once again, depending on how much Sione plays in the nickel. I think should absolutely be special. I think this group can do a lot of things, and a huge part of that is Nate Ritchie. You just mentioned how prolific and how fantastic Nate was during that 2020 season, a year that did not go Utah's way at all. We love to talk about the last few years of Utah football. 2019, awesome, of course. 2021, 2022, all great. There's that 2020 and obviously COVID year, but there were other teams that had better stretches during the COVID year. Not many in the pack, I will say, but either way, this wasn't the best time for this Utah football program. But Nate was one of those bright spots where it's like, man, then you lose. And I can't even imagine how fired up Nate is to get back after he missed out on 2 years of a Pac-12 championship run. I think he really wants to get his own. He's going to be one of those guys that's going to be that extra voice in the locker room, motivating these guys. Like, hey, I know a lot of you guys have gotten a couple. I want my ring finally. And I'm sure because he was still on the team, basically, in terms of still eligibility wise, maybe he does have some rings or whatever they give for the Pac-12 championship game, but I still think he really wants his. And I think he's a guy who's definitely going to be special. And I love that you brought up him being on the leadership council too, because I do think that is very significant and shows how much the staff trusts him. So it's going to be interesting to see what he's able to do. We're going to continue with our draft in a moment, but first I want to talk to you guys about our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. The tournament is heating up, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to the points scored to threes drained. You can also include things like the spread, the money line, points, rebounds for player props, and exclusive bets like a 2x3, which is 2 3-pointers scored in it the first 3 minutes of a game. March Madness is heating up. We're down to the Sweet 16, the men's and the women's. We also got the NBA season. There's about 15 to 20 games left for each team, and this is a critical stretch on the hardcore for both the pros and college. So make sure you guys get in the action at FanDuel. They even let you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss a chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment matter more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Nathan coming back into this one. I think the next guy I'm going to go with is a guy I actually just alluded to, Miki Suguturaga. I talked about him moving from defensive end over to tight end. And what was the whole thing I teased with this is Coach Witt talking about guys after practice. I think the reason that Mickey was moved over there was to be the Logan Kendall replacement. I hope that he gets a touchdown at some point this season. If the over-under was 3 on touchdowns for him, I would take the under. I think, especially with obviously how good Yasmin and Keithy are going to be, like I think he's going to much more be a blocker for this team, and it shows you how much they trust him to be able to put him in this spot. And look, the blocking tight end has been a huge piece of this offense for a couple years now. Cole Fotheringham, what Logan Kendall did, and that's going to fall on Miki Sugaturaga. And I think we're going to hear about him, especially in like those one-on-one drills, which probably what we won't get to see because we only get to see that last 15, 20 minutes of practice. But I think we're going to hear a lot about him and his ability and what he's able to do throwing guys around in those one-on-one opportunities. And I'm really excited to see him get out there and get this opportunity because the coaches really trust him. And I think he's only going to reaffirm their trust because of how good he did last year taking on offensive linemen. And now he'll be turning around where he's going to be basically the de facto extra offensive lineman throwing dudes around.
Right. It shows you how, important that position is for Andy Ludwig and his offense moving forward. Logan Kendall was exactly what the offense needed last year and blew so many holes open. And he was a great athlete as well. He measured at 6'3", 263 pounds. And then Miki's 6'4", 256 pounds. So basically the same frame. And he's going to be used a lot in the next year. And looking forward to him blowing up some holes and bringing that aggression to the offensive side. The next pick for me, it's kind of a rival to one of yours. I'm going to go with Mr. Brandon Rose as quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So we did not hear much from his end last year as he spent majority of the year with the scout team. Didn't suit up for many games. However, all year he sat behind Tyler Huntley with Andy Ludwig in the booth, and it was the scout team quarterback against a very good defense. And that's what Brandon Rose was last year. Just learning the game as much as possible, facing one of the best D1 defenses in all the nation, on the scout team. And really looking forward to his progression as a quarterback. And, we don't know what's going on in the quarterback room. We don't know really why Nate Johnson didn't get a shot in the Rose Bowl. That's behind us. But I think it's a lot closer than we think as far as that QB2 competition goes. And, it does stink that Cam's not going to be available. But with Bryson Barnes, Nate Johnson, Brandon Rose, I think the race is pretty neck and neck, and looking forward to what Brandon can bring to this offense.
Brandon is the other guy. And people have messaged me before saying you should talk about Brandon more. And look, I just feel like I think when I look at the different things that Nate can do and the different things that Bryson can do, that's why I kind of group them in together versus I feel like Bryson, look, how much better can Bryson get versus what a jump can Brandon make? Maybe Brandon can catch Bryson because I feel like those two guys are obviously a lot more similar than what the different skill set Nate could bring. So it makes a lot of sense. And it's going to be really interesting to see with those extra reps and those extra opportunities if he is able to catch these guys and if he's able to make those plays. So it's going to be something fun to watch. The quarterback battle is always one of the more exciting parts of spring ball. And it's going to especially be this season, especially because it could have huge implications for game one versus last year. It was just, well, if Cam goes down. This year, it's if Cam is unavailable, which is a very big if. So it's going to be something interesting to watch and see. For my next pick, just breakouts don't have to be guys who've been on the roster for a couple of years. I think about last year, Jalen Glover was turning a lot of heads and then made a couple plays for this team at the running back position. Now, yes, Jaquindon Jackson really emerged down the stretch of the season. And Brian Brown, I think on yesterday's show, he kind of picked Jaquindon and Teo as a couple of his breakout guys, which I think those guys have a great shot too. But I'm looking ahead to this year's freshman group of incoming guys, and I'm going to go with Mikey Matthews. Mikey Matthews is a guy a lot of people are really excited about to see get in here. 6-foot freshman from California, 175, exceptional route runner, just excels at getting open, good hands, good speed. I think he's going to become a quarterback's best friend very quickly, especially if he is getting a lot of reps with guys like Nate, Brandon, or Bryson. That I think if those guys start early on, we could see him have a big early game. It's always tough to play in your first year, but we saw last year where a guy like Jalen Glover was able to do it. And I think Mikey Matthews has got a chance to be that guy this year. I thought about a couple other freshmen in this spot, but I think with the uncertainty and the wide receiver room outside of course, Devon and Money Parks, I could see a world where Mikey Matthews becomes the third guy here. I think he's going to be the winner in terms of the freshman by the time we're done with spring ball.
Yeah, I like the pick. With the departure of Solomon Enos, there's definitely a hole there at the other to be on the outside next to Devon Bailey. And I think Mikey Matthews has the body to do so and has the speed, and he definitely performed well in the camp circuit, after a senior year and prove himself a little bit more. Uh, I think he was an underrated recruit, and I think Utah found themselves a good one with Mikey Matthews. I'm going to stay in the receiver room, and I'm going to go Money Parks. It's a familiar name for most of us. I just think he's going to have a lot more opportunities moving forward. With the departure of Dalton Kincaid and Jalen Dixon and Solomon Enos, like I said earlier, there's going to be a lot of balls available for Money, hopefully in the spring, and he needs to emerge as that wide receiver too. And Keithy, he'll be in a slot as well, and he'll get his touches. But Money Parks made a lot of progress last year. I think the play against in the Pac-12 championship, on 3rd and 19 was probably one of the biggest play of the year. That pushed Utah ahead in that game. And he has the speed, he has the route running ability, and he's one of the few guys on last year's team that could get separation on his own. And looking forward to him making even more progress this offseason.
Yeah, I think he's a guy who's only going to continue to trend upwards. The only reason I didn't go Money is I felt like he kind of started to break out through the second half of the season. But I will say this, he broke out as more of a number 2, number 3 kind of receiver for this team. He's their 3rd pass catcher overall. What if there is a world where he's 2nd on this team receiving? I think that absolutely points to him being in from even more of a breakout. And I could definitely see that being the case. Since we neither of us have taken any of each other's picks. And it does speak to something that Brian spoke to yesterday about one of the things that's fun about spring ball is you have so many guys that you could see a world where they break out, and it's be fun if we left spring ball with even more questions like, man, think about how much progress this guy made that we didn't expect. And it could make it even more of an interesting fall camp if more of these guys are pushing each other for jobs. Even though this Utah team does have a lot of returning starters, there's a lot of talented recruits over the past 2021 or 2022 recruiting class and the 2023 recruiting class that are going to be vying for some of those playing spots early. And will be very interesting to see how it works out. But for my final pick, I'm not going with a high recruit. I'm going with a transfer. And I think it's one a lot of people have forgotten about, but they're going to very quickly be reminded about. And that's Cole Becker, the kicker coming over from Colorado. And I think a lot of people will be listening to this and go, how is a kicker going to win or break out in spring camp? Now, and Cole will be this team's starting kicker, I believe. I think that there's not much drama or suspense about that. But as I said, again, what's Kyle Whittingham's and all the coaches, Karief Shaw, raving about these guys. One of the big things I think that you would do at the end of practice and all kinds of stuff is you want to simulate those pressure moments. So a lot of times you'll have your kicker out there kicking with the entire team looking on and watching. I think Cole Becker is going to shine in those moments. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of football like teams, when they're doing, especially at the high school level, they'll have like, if he makes this kick, you guys are done. But if he misses it, then you guys got to run. I could see the Utah football team doing something like that. And I feel like Cole Becker's the kind of guy that's going to drill that kick, because what did he do last year at Colorado? He was extremely accurate from far out. Between 40 to 49, he was 5 for 6 overall on those field goals. They even trusted him enough to try a 50-yarder. He didn't make it, but it shows you how much they trust him. He was 3 for 3 in terms of 30 to 39-yard field goals, and also 3 for 3 for 20 from 29. The kicking was pretty much one of the only bright spots that Colorado football had last season. And it's nice that bright spot for the Buffs is now going to become a bright spot for the Utes. Also, something I know a lot of Utah fans are going to be very happy about. This relates more to the season, not so much for spring ball, but he had 94 kickoffs at Colorado with 63 touchbacks. So I think Utah fans are going to be excited to see some touchbacks coming back into Rice-Eccles Stadium come the 2023 season. But I think Coach Witt has made a lot of comments about having lack of trust in kickers, and I expect that to change starting in spring ball with Becker.
Oh, I love that pick. And I think we'll be able to tell pretty early on what Kyle thinks of the kicker situation, because he's always so blunt with that. And it's been a competition the last few years. Ever since Matt Gay left, there hasn't been a ton of consistency there. And hoping Cole Becker can bring that to this offense, because he could change this offense. We saw in 2018 when Matt Gay was there, how much of a weapon he can be and how aggressive Kyle Whittingham can be, with the offense, at the end of the half, to get a couple extra points makes a big difference in the games. So looking forward to what he can bring to this team. My last pick.
Final one.
Go ahead.
No pressure. A lot of guys. Some guy might feel like he got snubbed and you got the final pick. So it's on you.
This is his brother's gotten a lot of hype, deservedly so. And I'm going to go with Mr. Logan Fano coming from BYU. You talked a little bit earlier about the defensive ends and how there's going to be a lot of opportunity there. I think Logan Fano is going to be right in the mix of that thing. coming off an ACL. I imagine.
Yes,
I
you're right.
imagine he'll be participating. So
We've
it'll
seen some
be
videos
probably
on social media of him working out. So as
right.
far as we know right now, he should be good to at least do some stuff.
Right. And so I think a big part of that will even just be learning the defense, and getting some live ball reps in there, and hopefully, he can stay healthy. He got hurt in spring ball last year at BYU, and he's nasty. He's a
Yes.
complete ball hawk. He loves going after the quarterback. He's quick, and his brother Spencer, is right there with him. But I think Logan has a lot of potential for this Utah defense, and will have a lot of opportunities to show what he's got.
He is going to have a ton of opportunities, and he's a guy that I'm a huge fan of. Logan Fano. I think when you look at the explosiveness and everything that he brings to this team, it's going to be really fun and exciting to see what he can do when he's back up to full strength. Hopefully, he's pretty close to that in spring ball, but I even think he's going to definitely have a chance to win some of those one-on-ones, and I can definitely see Coach Witt raving about him too. Make sure you guys let us know in the comments if we missed anyone. This Utah football team is loaded with talent. There's a reason they've won so many games the past couple of years, and I know they haven't been getting over the bowl hump, as some people said, but they have done something that this team hadn't done before, and that's win back-to-back Pac-12 championships. So really exciting time for the Utah football team, and spring ball is a crucial point in the development. So it's going to be fun to see who the winners are, especially even just coming out of day one of spring ball. And that's what we'll be talking about on tomorrow's Locked On Utes. In a moment, we're going to dive into what Utah basketball needs to do to get themselves back in the NCAA tournament and involved in some of that March Madness. But first, I want to talk to you guys about our friends at UCCU. It's the perfect time to open a low-rate home equity line of credit from UCCU. Over time, the value of your home goes up. As you make payments, the balance you owe goes down. The space in between is equity, and it's yours. A UCCU home equity line of credit can put the equity to work for you, like finishing your basement or yard and raising your home's value, or paying off high-interest loans and getting out of debt faster, or helping with college or weddings, or peace of mind that just comes from knowing you have a low-rate line of credit, ready for whatever, whenever. UCCU will also provide you with your very own home equity Visa card, giving you instant access to your equity. If you already have a home equity with another financial institution, just refinance with a UCCU and save. To learn more or to start your application today, visit uccu.com or stop by any UCCU branch. UCCU, love where you bank. Also, I want to talk to you guys about our friends at Built Bar. Built Bar, you guys can find a delicious treat that also doesn't have the fat and calories. I'm still trying to keep up with my New Year's resolution, but I don't want to compromise taste. That's why I really enjoy Built Bars. They're healthy and tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious you won't think they're good for you. Perfect for your New Year's resolution. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're all covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come unbelievably great flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is they're healthy. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've talked about ordering your Built Bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Smith's or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your local Smith's or Sam's Club today and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You guys can thank me later, or you can just continue to head over to Built.com and order them there. Nathan, it was so much fun to have March Madness back this weekend. I touched it earlier, having the women's team have so much success up at the Huntsman. Great atmospheres up there too, well supported by you guys, the fans. But one thing I was missing is it'd be great to have both teams in the tournament. The position the men's program is in right now, that was not going to be the case this year. Now, look, there was a time where it was like, man, that looks likely. They were flirting with some nice rankings in the Ken Bomb for a while, but then things really fell off at the end. We know because of the injuries. It's already been, I believe it was February 11th was the last time Utah won a basketball game. So pretty much a winless final month stretch for them. And a lot of that's due to injuries and everything. But still, everyone's talking about, okay, so what does this team need to do to get themselves back in March Madness? And also, what do they need to do to even advance farther than that? I mean, this is a team that hasn't reached the Sweet 16 since 2015 was their last time. They've only reached it twice since the 2000, 2005, 2015. Their last tournament win came in 2016 when they reached the round of 32. So there's a lot of ways you can go for what they need to do to get back into kind of good standings and get themselves in a position where they get a nice ranking in the tournament. But one thing they have to do is get better and upgrade at the guard spots. And I think we saw how good Brandon Carlson was for this team, but we also just saw in the NCAA tournament that big guards aren't enough. You need exceptional guard play to be able to advance in the NCAA tournament. What do I mean by that? Let's look at some of the best big men in college basketball. Oscar Tshiebwe, the National Player of the Year last year. Zach Edey, probably going to win the award this year. Trace Jackson, a sensational forward/center for Indiana. Even guys like Ballo and Tabelis from Arizona, what do they all have in common? They are now sitting at home because their season was over. And a large part is because their guards let them down. Basketball is still a guards game. Think about in the NBA, it's been a long time since a team has won with less than ideal guard play. But we've seen teams like the Warriors, the modern dynasty. How have they won? They have centers like JaVale McGee, kind of replaceable guys out there. So it's nice to have good centers, and you can win with having good big men. I think of the Lakers with Anthony Davis a couple of years ago, and we've still seen some good college teams going back. The Jahlil Okafor team with Duke, you can still win with some good centers. Although I say even the game has really passed Okafor by in a lot of ways. Where the biggest thing you need in college basketball and just basketball in general, it's a guards game, and you have to get athletic point guards who can score off the dribble, can create their own shot for them. We thought Utah might have a chance to get that in Mike Saunders for a lot of reasons. That just didn't work out this way. But Utah has to get more explosive and more athletic at the guard position to be able to create opportunities for others and themselves, because it's too easy to take big guys out of game. It's exactly why we saw Purdue go home so early in an unbelievable upset.
Right, especially against the team that they played. I mean, we were watching them last night, and the average height on that
FDU.
FDU team was 6'3", and Edie stands over 7 feet. Player of the year, of course. And like you said, JT, his guards let him down. They had so many open shots, open lanes to the rim, and they just could not produce for their team. And that's what ended up, getting them beat by an inferior FDU team who no one had ever heard of before this tournament.
Their SID's a junior in college. I've seen what it takes. I've watched other SIDs do their job at Utah, and I'm sure it's a little different at FDU, but like, that is unbelievable that kid's a junior and has to do all things SIDs do. That just blows my mind.
It's crazy. And then he's submitting homework at the same time he's doing all the press releases and stuff. It's awesome. But I completely agree with you. I think today we saw the departure of Boston Holt, who was more of a wing for this team. But that leaves you with 4 spots, in the offseason moving forward.
Hunter Meekum also moved on.
So I think, moving forward, Raleigh Worcester had a great year. He improved. I think he's one of the guys that improved the most from last year. Great assist to turnover ratio. Yeah. So it was tough to see him struggle at the end. He went 0 for 6 or so in the last game against Stanford, which was tough to see. But you need some more athleticism there. We saw it a little bit with Mike Saunders against UCLA. And just watching this tournament, you see guys, be able to attack the rim and get open shots for their teammates by being able to beat someone off the dribble. And right now, I'm not sure how many guys on the roster you can depend on, to get to the rim, on this Utah roster. So, but there's spots available. And I imagine Utah's going to go after the best players possible. There's not like one position where they just need to plug someone in. They need everybody, and they need shooting on the outside. But I agree with you. I think guard play is the most important moving forward.
It definitely is. And like we said, it's not like Raleigh can't play at the Pac-12 level. I think he would be. I still think he's best as a backup point guard. I think he's an elite. I think he'd be an elite backup point guard. I was on that train last year. And look, he made me eat crow a lot, but we saw against the best of the best that he would lose those point guard matchups to the UCLAs, to the USCs. And look, it's hard to get guys who are going to be able to beat that. But I know it's not Raleigh, so I would rather try for someone else. We mentioned the shooting. When Gabe was hurt, that was a huge vacuum for this team. Stefanovic is a guy who can score, but does it really inefficiently. He usually gets his 15 points, but it comes at close to 15 shots usually. So just a lot of things this Utah team has to improve on. This season was still a step in the right direction. This team won 11 games last year. This year, they still had a winning record, 17-15 overall, so still trending in the right direction. At least you got the big win against Arizona. Just got to close the season much better and have more depth. So when you have those injuries come up, you're not as caught off guard by them, basically. So it's going to be really fun and interesting to see how this team goes about the transfer portal. It's another huge offseason for Craig Smith and his team, and something that we're going to continue to break down on Locked On Utes. And something else we'll be following all the month long is spring ball, officially getting underway today as the time you guys are listening to this show. So make sure you guys enjoy it. We will be back tomorrow breaking it down. Make sure you guys give Nathan a follow at Twitter at Nathan_Roderick. And Nathan, always appreciate you coming on, and make sure you guys check out the great stuff that Nathan has going on at UteZone. But Nate, thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, JT.
If you guys are in the market for a second listen every day, you have to check out the Locked On College Basketball podcast. March Madness was officially madness yesterday. So for your second listen, you guys have to head over and check out a brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball, where experts Isaac Shade and Andy Patton bring you everything you need to know on and off the court. Plus, you can hear from big name experts, coaches, and players throughout the basketball landscape. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Big thanks again for Nathan for joining us. That's going to do it for today's show, but we'll see you tomorrow.